The sun rose gently over the quiet hills of a small village, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Birds sang their morning songs, and the marketplace slowly came alive with the sound of footsteps, chatter, and the clatter of wooden tools. Men stood in groups, waiting and hoping that someone would hire them for the day. Among them stood a group of workers, tired, dusty, and anxious. Their eyes darted toward every landowner who passed, hoping to hear the words, "Come, work in my vineyard today." Work meant food. Work meant dignity. And for many, it meant hope for their families. As the sun climbed higher, a landowner approached. He was a kind-looking man, dressed simply, with eyes that carried wisdom and compassion. He looked around and said in a calm voice, "You, come and work in my vineyard. I will pay you 1 denarius for the day." The men nodded eagerly. 1 denarius was fair, enough to feed their families for the night. They picked up their tools and followed him down the dusty road that led to his vineyard. The vineyard was wide and green, its vines heavy with ripe grapes shining like purple jewels in the sunlight. The landowner showed them where to start, and soon the air filled with the sound of snipping shears and rustling leaves. The workers moved quickly, sweating under the sun, their hands sticky with grape juice. But as the day went on, the landowner went back to the marketplace. It was already mid-morning, yet he found more men standing around, still waiting. Their faces looked weary and defeated. He said to them, "Why are you standing here all day doing nothing?" "No one has hired us," one replied softly. "Then go work in my vineyard too," the landowner said kindly. "I will pay you what is right." Their eyes lit up. They thanked him and hurried off, their hearts filled with relief. At noon, the landowner went out again, and again at 3 in the afternoon. Each time, he saw men still waiting and said the same thing, "Go work in my vineyard, and I will pay you what is right." Finally, as the day was nearing its end, the sun began to sink low in the sky, painting the vineyard in golden light. The landowner went out one last time, around the 11th hour, just 1 hour before sunset. He found a few men still standing there, hopeless and silent. Their shoulders sagged. They had waited all day with no success. He asked, "Why are you still standing here?" "No one has hired us," they murmured. With compassion in his eyes, the landowner smiled. "Then go and work in my vineyard too." The men looked at each other, surprised but grateful. Though only 1 hour remained, they hurried to the vineyard, ready to do their best. The sky was painted with soft shades of pink and orange as the day drew to a close. The workers, old and young, wiped the sweat from their brows and looked out over the vineyard they had toiled in all day. The vines now stood bare, their fruits carefully gathered into baskets. The air smelled sweet, a mix of crushed grapes and earth. The landowner stood at the edge of the vineyard, watching his workers with quiet satisfaction. His heart was full of gratitude, not just for the harvest, but for the people who had labored faithfully. As the sun began to set, he called to his foreman, "Gather the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with those who were hired last." The workers stopped what they were doing and gathered in a line. The men who had worked for only 1 hour stood at the front, dust still clinging to their robes. They exchanged nervous glances. Would they even be paid enough to buy bread? The foreman reached into a small leather bag and handed each of them a silver coin, 1 full denarius. Their eyes widened. 1 denarius. That was a full day's pay. They looked at each other in disbelief. "Surely this must be a mistake," one whispered. But the foreman only smiled and moved on. As word spread down the line, the men who had worked since morning began to smile too. "If those who worked 1 hour got 1 denarius, one of them said excitedly, "then we must surely receive more." Their hearts filled with expectation. Finally, the foreman reached them, the ones who had labored from dawn till dusk, who had carried the heaviest loads and sweated under the hottest sun. The foreman handed each of them their pay, 1 denarius. The smiles faded. The men looked down at their coins, then back up, confusion turning into frustration. "What?" one of them said. "We worked the whole day. These men worked only 1 hour, and you've made them equal to us." Their voices grew louder, full of complaint and anger. "We bore the heat. We carried the burden. How is this fair?" The landowner, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward calmly. His voice was gentle, yet firm. "My friends," he said, "I am not unfair to you. Did you not agree to work for 1 denarius?" The men hesitated. "Yes," one muttered, "but still." The landowner continued, "Take your pay and go. I choose to give the same to the ones who came last. Do I not have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you angry because I am generous?" The vineyard grew silent. The men who had been angry now stared at the landowner, ashamed. His words pierced their hearts. As they walked away, the workers realized something they hadn't before. The landowner's kindness wasn't about fairness. It was about grace. Night had settled over the village, and the cool breeze brushed gently through the vineyard. The workers made their way home beneath the stars, each one lost in thought. The coins in their hands gleamed faintly under the moonlight, the same coin for each man, yet it meant something very different to everyone. Those who had worked since dawn still felt uneasy. The words of the landowner echoed in their minds, "Are you angry because I am generous?" They couldn't shake the feeling of confusion and pride that battled inside them. They had labored hard, surely they deserved more. Yet deep within, they also remembered how happy they had been that morning when they were first chosen to work. They had agreed to the pay willingly. Meanwhile, the men who had worked only 1 hour walked with quiet amazement. Their hearts were overflowing with gratitude. "I can't believe he paid us a full day's wage," one said softly. "I thought we'd go home empty-handed." Another added, "It's like he saw our waiting, our struggle, and had mercy." Their words were humble, full of wonder. For them, it wasn't just money. It was kindness that reached deeper than their effort. Back at his home, the landowner sat on his porch, looking out across his vineyard in the moonlight. He smiled to himself, thinking of the day's events. He knew some would not understand, but his heart was at peace because he had shown generosity that reflected the heart of God, a heart that rewards not just by effort, but by grace. The next morning, as the sun rose again over the hills, the men gathered once more in the marketplace. This time, something had changed. The early workers looked at those who had come late the day before, and instead of pride, they felt something new, understanding. They realized that each man had his own story. Some had waited all day, not because they were lazy, but because no one had chosen them. Their chance had come late, but when it came, they gave their best. The reward wasn't about hours, it was about the Master's mercy. And so the vineyard became a place of gratitude rather than jealousy. The men worked side by side, knowing that the Master's kindness went beyond fairness. It was a gift. Jesus ended this parable by saying, "So the last will be first, and the first will be last." The message was clear. In God's kingdom, everyone is loved and valued, not because of how much they do, but because of God's grace and mercy. Moral lesson. Have you ever looked at someone else's life and wondered why they seem to have more blessings, more success, more recognition, even when you've been working hard for so long? The parable of the vineyard reminds us that God's grace doesn't follow human logic. It's not about who started first or who worked the hardest. It's about God's goodness and mercy that reach everyone, no matter when they come to Him. The workers who joined late in the day received the same reward as those who started early. At first, that might feel unfair, but Jesus was teaching something deeper, that God's grace is a gift, not a wage. None of us earn His love or salvation. It's freely given. Sometimes, life can feel unfair. Someone gets the job you wanted, the recognition you hoped for, or a blessing you've been praying about. But when we remember this story, we learn to shift our hearts from comparison to gratitude. God sees you. He hasn't forgotten your efforts. His blessings come in His perfect timing, and they always match His purpose for your life. So today, instead of comparing your journey with someone else's, celebrate what God is doing in your life, and in theirs. His grace is big enough for everyone. And when we learn to rejoice in His goodness, we find peace that no amount of comparison can ever take away.